I don't target income. I target titles. Targeting people at a certain income, you miss this like large amount of gray area. I think people put themselves in a box before they even do the marketing, and they're like, well, I'm only targeting this person. Well, what if someone else outside of that box immediately is interested? You're in your head, what you accidentally just did to yourself is now you're like, oh, I have to change my whole business. The best clients come in and they're like, I'm interested to see your processes and what you do and get that in my business. Whereas bad clients come in thinking they can kind of control and put their processes into your model. And they don't, it's just like the dynamics off from the beginning. And I find that those are the clients that don't work out, the ones who want to just inject all of their own, they want it like a customized thing. And more often than not, they just don't know that they need something different. Like I'll tell these people, I'm like, honestly, you need an in-house writer or something. Like you need a team or something like that. I'm not that.
So next subject, I realized I've had some clients that make more than me, and I have a hot take, dude. You know how when common niching advice, right? I think niching is overrated. Finding a niche is overrated. Let me explain. You know how people go with, maybe they learn that they want high quality people to become leads. So they go with, if you're a coach at 5K a month, if you're a consultant at 10K a month, and that's kind of how they start. Have you seen those kind of ads? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
So what I think it's stupid. I don't think it's the right move. Here's why. I think it's working against you. I don't want to say stupid because we're the nuanced podcast. You know what I mean? I'm just feeling a little spicy today. And this is the worst time to create content, by the way, because when you're like, I want to tell these people how all the things they're doing are wrong. That's the worst time to create content. But anyway, the call was scheduled, so here we go. Back to the point. I've had some clients that make more money than me. And when I asked them, like, why, right? They don't want my skills to make money. They want my philosophy in order to get money. They want to them, it's not about the money. It's about the way they get there. It's about doing it the cash creator way. So I came up with this kind of rule of thumb for me that it's philosophy beats promises. So some people join for the promise, other people join for the philosophy, right? And by saying, if you're a whatever at 5K a month, if you're a 6-figure, a 7-figure person, and you make that kind of the core of your marketing, then you limit yourself to people making that kind of money. You think you're bringing higher people in, but what you're actually doing is limiting yourself because people ahead of that, then they are not attracted to that promise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you shouldn't do that. I think that philosophy beats promises. And by putting your code out there, you will attract higher level people than if you didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an agency, so most of the people I work with have more money than me. But I agree with the targeting. I used to target that way. Like coaches, I used to do like, oh, if you're above 50K a month. Now I just go with kind of their names. I actually added influencer to my website. My lead flow has been crazy lately, but I don't target income. I target, what do you call it? Names, titles? I target titles. I think it's much better to do that. So we kind of have we share that philosophy, in my opinion, is how we target people. I do think targeting people at a certain income, you miss this like large amount of gray area. For example, what if someone was at 50K a month for 2 years and they just hit 25K a month and they just need one little tweak and I 100% could help them and they're a perfect fit. Well, now I just like fucked myself, right? So that's probably, and also I've had people who've come on making 0 a month, but they're a millionaire with their actual business and they just want to now start that other business that I would help with. I'm going to be like, no, sorry. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, you're not at 50.
Yeah.
So it's stupid. Or like they will disqualify themselves. They're like,
they disqualify
Marcus is
themselves.
not for me. Sorry.
Exactly.
So how do you fix that? How do you fix this? How do you correct that? In my opinion, is I don't speak to the point where they are. I speak to the future of where they could be. You do a good job at this. You post the screenshots of where they could be. I show people how little they could be working and how much they could be making. And that allows them to put themselves in that situation. So you will rarely catch me saying, if you're at this level, I would rather show you this is what it could be, because it's not up to me to choose at what stage you're in. I don't know. And this is why people who try to niche down too much, they never get it right because there's just so many options to choose from. Whereas if you skip that entirely and you showed where they could be, that becomes a way better level of marketing because you attract better clients. And also you attract a broader range of clients. This is what I mean when you don't choose the niche chooses you. When you show where they could be, the niche themselves rises and say, hey, I would be interested in that. From the people who rise, that is your niche. It chooses you, you don't choose it.
I agree completely. I actually have a really good practical example of this. I just had a call with someone who was a listener of the Likes and Cash podcast, so some free game here. He does Notion related stuff, like Notion, and he has like a Notion coaching thing. And basically, the gist of the story is that he was saying he was basically creating like a B2C coaching offer. And I was like, well, what if I, the business owner, came to you and I'm like, I need you to kind of overhaul my CRM and I need some coaching on how to use it and stuff. Are you going to say no? It's like, well, no. So I'm like, you're B2B and B2C because you don't get to choose. And I think people put themselves in a box before they even do the marketing. And they're like, well, I'm only targeting this person. Well, what if someone else outside of that box immediately is interested? Well, now you have to, now you're in your head. What you accidentally just did to yourself is now you're like, oh, I have to change my whole business. Like it's going, you know what I mean? But in reality, if you were just open to everybody at the start and realize that you're just an expert and you let people decide what your offer is and what you let people decide what direction you go, it would have been much better. So I told him that literally an hour ago. So if he's listening, it's perfect.
Does his name start with K?
No, doesn't.
Ah, okay. Well, my bad then. You know what this is like? It's like you show up to a club and you're like, I only want blondes. And then what if a cute brunette comes up to you? Are you just going to say like, no? Right? What? So what are brunettes going to do? Like, what are blondes going to do? They're going to look at you and be like, ah, fuck this guy. What are brunettes are going to do? They're going to look at you and be like, ah, fuck this guy.
What if it's a blonde who just dyed her hair blonde, but she's actually a brunette and you were a brunette guy. And now it's a natural brunette who dyed her hair blonde for like 2 months. And now you just lost the love of your life because you put yourself in a box.
There you go. And then you go home and you think, fuck, it didn't work. Let me tweak.
Welcome to the Likes and Cash podcast. Exactly. Then you go home and you're like, well, I should have been targeting blondes the whole time. And then you go target blondes 2 months later, but she's back to her natural hair color and brunette. And you fucked up.
The answer all the time, what was it? Show up at your best. Let them choose the niche.
Exactly.
No, let the niche choose. Let the niche choose you. That's what I mean. There you go. Be open.
I have this exact example. Julia was blonde for like a year in college, and now she's a brunette. But if I had met her at blonde, and I was like, because personally, like blondes aren't my type. So if I saw her at blonde, and I was like, oh, she's not my type. Well, now she's brunette. She's a natural brunette. So I agree. This is banger. Welcome to Likes and Cash podcast. Hope you're enjoying. Smash that like button, leave a review, subscribe.
Let's go.
We've never done a call to action ever in 54 episodes.
And you can tell we're really rusty at it. Because listen, bro, like, so this is why I think like niching down is overrated. Let me tell you what other thing I think is overrated. Market research. If you do coaching and consulting, let me explain. If you sell to cold traffic, if you want to sell shower filters and toothpaste, sure. Market research is the gemstone of it. But when it comes to coaching and consulting, you are selling luxury goods. Market research doesn't do you as much as you positioning yourself as higher status, as being the top guy. So when I try to do too much market research, what I find personally is that I start whoring myself out for the niche instead of me showing this is who I am. I am the niche. If you want to, cool. If not, whatever. I make more money when I don't do the market research. Like I know like roughly what they want. More money, more time, more freedom. Done. The difference is how I show it in my own life. So by trying to, make the 4 pillars of the pains and the goals, and it doesn't serve me because I find myself limiting myself. And remember that people don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. So it's tough. Like how do you don't really have a place for market research. It's better if you just show yourself out.
I agree. And I think especially true. That's especially true when you're just like building. Like I think early on, the best market research you're going to get is just talking to your target audience and trying to sell them stuff. That's going to give you the market research. That's going to give you the feedback on your product and allow you to iterate. I think market research is only really important after you've already made a bunch of sales and you're like, okay, I need to scale. If you want to scale, you don't even have to. If you actually wanted to scale, then it's like, okay, I might do some market research to figure out where to put my resource. It's harder. Like, for example, like where should I go harder on Instagram or harder on this? Like, but especially at the beginning, I don't know. I'm not going to put it in a box and be like from 0 to 50K a month. But I think in the beginning specifically, I'm going to keep using this guy as an example that I just had a call with. He's like, oh, I'm building this offer and this low ticket and this high ticket and this and that and all this. I'm like, have you actually tried to sell it? Well, no. Well, then how are you going to have any actual data? You know what I mean? You don't have real data until you try to sell a thing. So I totally agree.
You know what I think is something to note about what you and I were doing? We're not talking too much about concepts or what we think will happen in the future. You and I were talking about things that have already happened in the past. What I'm telling you about account versus brand and the rest, and blondes versus brunettes, and what you're telling me about the client you had an hour ago, these are insights that came to us because we were doing.
Yeah.
We were out there.
We're out there in the trenches,
Do
bro.
we plan our podcasts? We don't plan our podcasts. We just do not do that. We show up, like, let me tell you what I do. I show up to the pod 10 minutes early, and I read the emails that I wrote last week. I look at my calendar to see what I talked about. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Because the best content isn't created, it's collected. It's from what you have already done in the past.
You do so much more than me. I just show up. Because usually, you know what it is too, is I take way more calls than you. So I usually am just drawing what I remember from my calls this week. And then I use that as my driver. And since you're more of a cash creator, you're drawing from the emails you've written, and it gives us so much shit to do. And then if we really run dry, we go on Twitter and see what we've been tweeting.
Yeah. And if it goes really dry, we talk anime.
Anime. Yeah. If we're really, we have nothing, we didn't prepare at all when we start talking anime at minute 20.
I mean, you pull out the Pokemon, man. Like, I chose Chimchar, by the way, not Piplup. I like Chimchar. Firefighting.
Yeah, I had to choose Piplup just because of my boys over at the Pudgy Penguins mixed with the birdhouse colors, and it just made sense. It's a blue bird. Like, how could I have not chosen it? Which is weird.
You have a way of plugging in things into this goddamn podcast. Like, I never see them coming. You always plug something in.
I always tell people, especially for like agency owners, or like maybe not even agency owners, but like if you're trying to be like someone who creates viral shit, you will literally benefit so much from being tapped in. Like, you just got to be tapped in. I'm so tapped into everything.